Today I'm demoing the Maple Overdrive. It's based on the old Marshall Bluesbreaker pedal from, I believe it was the late 80s, early 90s. Can't remember off the top of my head. But in essence, it was one of the first amp-in-a-box style pedals. Marshall released a couple of pedals along this concept in around that era. Including the Marshall Governor, the Marshall Shredmaster, the Marshall Drive Master, I think it was. Basically just, attempts at making standalone pedals that would sound like classic Marshall amps to get those tones into going into a clean amp. The Bluesbreaker is based on, it was an attempt to get a JTM 45 style sound out of pretty much any clean amp. Whether or not it accomplishes this task is in the ear of the beholder. Right now I'm playing Fender Blues Junior, and I can't say that it sounds anything like a JTM 45, but regardless of whether or not the pedal failed in that respect, it's still a cool sounding circuit. Nice alternative to your standard tube screamers, OCDs, those kind of overdrive circuits. Right now I'm playing my Les Paul into my Blues Junior. Clean tone is like this. That's just the bridge pickup, neck pickup. And here it is with the pedal on. Now, one of the major problems with the original circuit was, as you can see, I have volume control, gain control, tone control, and the switch which I'll get into in a second. So as you can see, the volume control is all the way up. This pedal doesn't have too much output in the stock circuit configuration. So the way the pedal was meant was you would crank up the gain to get that kind of cranked up amp style, kind of like Eric Clapton or Jimmy Page or Hendrix or any of the early Marshall amp users. So, in the stock circuit configuration, which is with this switch up, you don't have too much output volume, but you do get a nice clipping sound. There's just a nice hair around the attack of your notes. It's very, very bright and cutting. Like, this is with the tone all the way up. And this is with it all the way down. I'll just increase the volume a little bit. So unlike a lot of drives that tend to get too dark when you have the tone all the way down, this one is still usable when you have the tone all the way down, but it gets pretty piercingly bright when you turn it all the way up. There's a trim pot on the inside there that is a popular, I added because it's a popular mod on many of these Bluesbreaker style clones. Basically, if you're playing into a dark amp and even this isn't cutting through enough, you can just dial that back, and it sort of adds resistance to a pot that's rolling off frequencies, and essentially you're it helps prevent even more frequencies of those treble frequencies from getting lost, so you can get even more brightness. But for the purposes of this demo and everything, my Blues Junior is pretty bright and clear sounding. with all the mods I've done to that, which I won't get into right now. So I don't need the extra presence or brightness or anything. So that's with the gain fairly high, about 75%. If I turn it down and turn the volume all the way up, you can hear how it doesn't work all that well as a clean boost in this mode. That's where this switch comes in. It basically takes the clipping diodes out of the equation. So it's still fairly quiet there, but you have an increased range on the gain where it stays cleaner. Or semi-clean. It's hard to set it up on the fly because I'm using humbuckers and into this and everything. But you can hear the added output. You can easily hear the difference there. And the tone control is useful here, so you can add more those airy treble frequencies or take them away. And put it back up. Now, another mod I've done is I've changed the potentiometer there to a higher value. Just the way the circuit works, when you adjust it, you're not adjusting one gain stage, but two at the same time. It's kind of hard to describe. If you're into electronics or whatnot and take a look at the circuit of the Blues Breaker circuit, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's there's this one gain stage where you're adding resistance and it increases the gain, and another gain stage where you take away resistance and it increases gain, just because of the way each of those gain stages are configured. And this is in the middle, so it's kind of so it tends to go from really quiet to really gainy fast. Simply because of the fact that it's increasing the gain of two stages at the same time. Right there. Now, hopefully this is coming through, but the EQ on this is much flatter than it would be with a tube screamer, except rather than have a spike in like the mid-range or upper mids, this has a very high treble spike, a very high spike in the treble frequencies, which is why the tone control on this is so important. It does roll off the bass a little bit, which probably around the same levels as a tube screamer, even though the curve of the EQ is different between the two pedals. So might not necessarily be the pedal you want for all those doomy, hardcore, heavy tones. I don't know how to describe them. But then again, you may still want it because it does have the bass roll off. It could easily be used as a boost when you have the boost mode in to keep things nice and tight and everything. It's something that's unusual for a lot of my pedals is this at the moment actually doesn't have an output buffer stage. I did originally intend to plan on, or I did originally mean to put one in, but I made a mistake and left out a resistor. I'll be completely honest. This wasn't meant to be the original design that I was going to put out. I was just making a prototype design, but then I realized I wanted to do some different things, and some of the things didn't work out. But I realized with a few jumpers and everything, I could make it a pretty straightforward Blues Breaker clone. So in the meantime, while I'm redesigning it for all those extra features for a future revision, I have this version for anyone who's interested in a Blues Breaker type pedal. But anyways, because it didn't work out for having an output buffer stage, it's just the volume pots and the associated caps and everything going straight out. So, but because there's so much treble in this, it's probably not the worst thing in the world. I mean, unless you have a really, really long cable run coming straight out of this pedal, going to your amp or whatnot, I would assume that most of you would have it on a pedal board with another pedal right next to it, as I do here, this delay pedal. That short of a distance is fine for signal integrity, and because there's so much treble here, even if it does roll off a bit, I don't think it would cause any problems whatsoever. I will have a buffered gain stage in a future version, but it's unlike a lot of fuzzes or darker sounding overdrives. It's not an issue with this one simply because there's so many highs there. Like, it might actually help things. I'm not saying this pedal is shrill. Like, you can definitely get those shrill sounds, especially if you're going into a bright amp with like single coil guitars such as a Strat or Tele. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be doing a revision of this, but because I still have a bunch of boards left over, anyone who's interested in this, because all the experiments I wanted to, like I said, I ordered the boards for this to do experiments to make the circuit as cool and different as possible, but that'll take some time. So anyone who wants a Blues Breaker style overdrive, feel free to ask me. I know I said all that before just a minute or two ago, but really want to hammer that in. The Blues Breaker style pedals have been popular to clone, like JHS has one called the Morning Glory. The Analog Man, King of Tone and Prince of Tone are based on the Blues Breaker circuit, albeit with a few mods, some of which I may have borrowed here, but the revisions I'm going to be doing, I'm planning on taking it a step further. Oh yeah, I haven't tested it as of yet for this demo, but this pedal should be able to take like up to 18 volts, no problem. Like I specifically designed it so that there would be no issues whatsoever with that. So you should be able to get more headroom and volume if needed if you use an 18-volt power supply. But for normal use, just a 9-volt center negative supply is fine. Oh, and one last thing, the pedal stacks very well. Like here it is with some slapback delay from the TTC. Sorry, I don't want to get sued. TCT delay Junior, the Toronto City Transit delay. It works well with boosts going into it too. Here's the Achilles overdrive going into it, so like I'm really going to be pushing the mids. Or it works nicely as a boost after an overdrive, such as the Achilles. So. That's about all I have to show for right now for this. Yeah, it's just a nice, cool overdrive. I know I make a lot of drive pedals, but seriously, if you want something that's an alternative to a tube screamer, but still has that nice cut to it, but in the upper range, this is a good choice. And I was only playing my Les Paul right now because my Strat kind of needs new strings, but like single coil guitar like a Strat into a clean amp, and this you can easily get blues breaker tones, blues breaker tones like those vintage bluesy Marshall amps that you just crank up, no master volume or anything, you just crank up and get volume. It excels at those kind of stinging but still very dynamic sounds. Yeah. So hopefully you enjoyed the demo. Like I said, this is the Maple overdrive based on the Blues Breaker circuit. This is one that I can tell you I'll definitely be doing a revision, but reach out if you want this. The revision may take ages, like, I don't know, months, years, who knows. But this is a pretty nice sounding drive. How many times have I said that so far? If you're interested in this or any of the other pedals I featured here, like the Achilles or the TCT delay, you can reach me at tomfreemanaudioeffects@gmail.com. Also check out my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts, which are all variations of Tom Freeman Audio Effects, or at TF Audio Effects, or all variations of that. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get updates on all the new videos and everything. And that's about all for now. Oops, that's still the Achilles on.